Workhouse Orphans, written by Holly Green, read by Julie Maisey. The moral right of the author has been asserted. Prologue.
They've got to go. I've told you. We've got 5 of our own. We can't cope with any more. They'll have to go.
May could hear Mr. Johnson shouting from downstairs. Then she heard the door bang as he went off to his work on the docks. She shifted her position in the narrow, crowded bed. Jenny's elbow was sticking into her ribs, and Maisie's foot was right by her nose. A sound reached her. A sniff followed by a half-stifled whine, like the cry of an animal in pain. Gus was crying and trying not to be heard. She eased herself out of the bed and wrapped her shawl round her shoulders. The boys' bed was close by, and by the smell of it one of them had wet himself. Not Gus. Her little brother never did that. She bent down and scooped him up in her arms, and he buried his face in her shoulder, snuffling. She moved over to the one rickety chair and sat down with him on her lap. "Don't cry, Gus. It'll be all right. You'll see. We'll be all right." She wanted to believe it, but it was hard. She had been 3 when their father disappeared, lost at sea, and Gus just a baby. That was nearly 3 years ago. They had never seen much of him because he was a sailor and away from home most of the time. She had got used to being without him, but she had seen her mother grow thin and tired, taking in washing to keep them from starving. Then, just a few days ago, she had come in from playing out in the cobbled yard, with its smell from the 2 privies shared between 8 families, to find Mrs. Johnson waiting for her. "Your mum's poorly," she'd said. "You're going to stay with us for a while." She had watched people going in and out of the house where she had grown up, and one day 4 men had come out, carrying a big box, and Percy, Mrs. Johnson's eldest, had said, "Your ma's dead. That's a coffin. They're taking her to be buried." As soon as they had eaten their breakfast, thin porridge made for 6 but shared out between 8, Mrs. Johnson put on her cap and shawl and told Percy to keep an eye on the others and see they didn't get up to mischief while she was out. When she got back, she took Gus on her lap and pulled May close to her. "Now listen to me. You understand. Your mam is dead, don't you?" "What's dead?" Gus asked. "It means she's gone to heaven to live with Jesus." "When's she coming back?" "She can't come back, love. When people die, they can't come back. But she'll be watching out for you, looking down from heaven, wanting you to be good and brave. But now there's no one to look after you, and you can't stay here because there's too many of us already. You can see that, can't you?" May nodded. "So a nice man is coming today, and he's going to take you to live in a big house at the top of the hill with lots of other children. That'll be good, won't it? You'll have your own beds again and plenty to eat and friends to play with, so you must go along with him like good children. Understand?" Gus just sniffed miserably, but May nodded. Anything had to be better than sharing a bed with the other girls and hearing Mr. Johnson shout at his wife. The man arrived not long afterwards, a tall, thin man in a hat that made him look even taller and a coat that looked as if he had spilled something down it and not wiped it off properly. He and Mrs. Johnson talked for a few minutes, and then he said, "Right, you 2. You come along with me." Mrs. Johnson came to the entry from the court into the road to see them off. "Now you be good children, and May, you look after your brother." "I will," May promised. They set off, almost running to keep up with the man's long strides. Gus began to grizzle, and May took hold of his hand to help him along. She tried to ask the man about the place where they were going to, but he did not seem to want to talk, so she kept quiet and let her imagination wander. When her mother was alive and not too tired to talk, she used to tell them stories. They were always stories about poor little girls who somehow met a mysterious stranger who turned out to be a prince and took them to live in his beautiful palace. When May had asked what a palace was, her
Sample complete. Ready to continue?